Hoy en Mente Hispana.
I need to be a voice for those who are afraid to speak up. I need to be a voice for those who don't have a voice. Because if I don't, then who will?
Welcome again to Mente Hispana, a thought leadership show, a space where Hispanic leaders share their stories of growth, challenges, and strategies to inspire you. Today, we are joined by a guest whose path has impacted thousands of Latino entrepreneurs across the United States. From Texas, J.R. Gonzales has dedicated his professional life to empowering our business community. He's an entrepreneur, consultant, speaker, and currently serves as executive vice chair of TAMACC Foundation. Also chair of the Hispanic Leadership in Management Foundation, one of the most influential organizations for Hispanic business owners in Texas. He's also the voice behind the well-known podcast Latino Business Report, where he shares awesome stories of success and key topics for our community. JR, such a pleasure to have you here at Mente Hispana. How are you today?
Sergio, I'm doing fine, and thank you, sir. I want to thank you. It's such an honor to be a guest on your show, especially in the early episodes. It's kind of setting the foundation of what to expect. So thank you. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast, sir.
Thank you for your time. For those who don't know him, J.R. Gonzales is a visionary leader in business and community development. In addition to his role in TAMACC, JR produces and hosts the podcast that we previously mentioned. I'm hoping to learn from you also because, as you mentioned, it's one of my first episodes, so I'm here learning also from you. JR, briefly tell us, how did your passion for economic development and Hispanic business?
Ooh, Sergio, that's an interesting story. Yes, part of my interest for Hispanic business was being Latino. I started looking at going into business. I actually started my first legal business. Growing up, I used to be a bit of an entrepreneur. I was always looking from mowing yards to selling snow cones, selling raspas on the street corner, to always trying to figure a way to make a buck. And then when I attended college, parents, we middle class family, they couldn't afford to pay for my tuition. So in between classes, after school, spring break, whenever, I had to hustle. I had to find a job, create something. A lot of times the pay wasn't there or didn't fit with my schedule. So I guess one of my earliest ventures into business is that when I was in college, I actually started a singing telegram company. Telegrams, and the eye gags, whatever, people would hire us. They'd pay us to show up at parties, to show up at somebody's door. And I actually worked my way for a semester and a half through college, doing pie in the eye gags and different things with a group of people that I assembled to say, okay, let's have fun and see if we can make a little bit of money so we don't have to flip burgers. So that kind of started it. And then later on, right out of college, I got, after working for some people in some different businesses, I realized very quickly, Sergio, that I'm not the personality type that likes to follow people's instructions all the time. I kind of like to do it my own. So the entrepreneurship in me just kind of bubbled up to the top, and I started my first business at age 26. By 28, I had started a second business and was on the roll, and it's all history now. So started my first business at 26. That was maybe 10 years ago? No. I've been in business, I'm 57 now. So I've had a long career in entrepreneurship and being my own boss, and a small stint of working for other people for a little while. The passion that I have is recognizing that the Latino community, the fastest growing community, period, population-wise, also in business. I believe that especially here in Texas, Latino businesses are the backbone of our economy. Latino-owned businesses are growing faster than any other market segment. Latina-owned businesses are growing 3 to 7 times faster than any other market segment in the country. And if you were to get all the Latinos in the continental United States, and Sergio, if we were to be our own country, we'd have the 5th largest GDP in the world. So recognizing facts like that and looking at the obstacles as Latinos that we had to face in overcoming the bid process, some discriminatory practices when it comes to whether it be lending or business opportunities, I said, this is where I want to be. And that's how I got involved with TAMACC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce, and have become an advocate for Latino businesses and small businesses all across the board, whenever and however I can.
That's amazing. Have you ever heard of an association called ELVN, Latino Business Action Network?
Yes, I have. I'm not that familiar with them, but I've seen them before.
I'm an alumni from that association. and they gave me a scholarship to go and study at Stanford. They do this every 6 months for Latino business owners that are looking to scale their business. And once a year, they have this national conference where they bring us together. The last one was at Stanford University a few months back, and they were telling us about all these statistics, how Latino business are growing, how Latina business are even growing faster. And I completely agree with this, and I'm experiencing it. Let me go a little bit back. And when you were starting, did you have a mentor who made a deep impact in your career that helped you during your entrepreneurship while you were trying to do your first business, maybe the second one? Do you have someone there?
Serio, I wish I could say yes, but not really. I was inspired. I had some ideas. I looked around. There's very few people in my space that were doing that. I really didn't. My first business was an advertising agency, public relations advertising firm. And for Latino, there wasn't that many out. And then unfortunately, and I don't say this in a disparaging way, but a lot of times, especially the older Latinos in our country or around, it's kind of like a lot of them, not all of them. Some of them have been very, very kind and very, very helpful, but there's those that goes, "Sabes que, I got mine, you're on your own. You got to figure it out." So there wasn't a lot of programs, there wasn't mentorship, there wasn't any type of learning of how to start a business or how to scale up. So I kind of learned the hard way. I made some mistakes. Those mistakes cost me a lot of time and a lot of money, but we learned a lesson and we never made those mistakes twice. So to answer your question, no, I really didn't have a mentor or a guide. I wish I had. In fact, the sad part is when I went to school, I never even took a business course. I never took any business courses, didn't think I'd even be in business. And then as a result, the majority of my professional career is being not only my own businesses, but also working with business.
Well, that's great. Sometimes when I ask this question, a lot of people said, like you, like I didn't have any specific person, but I did have like a book or a podcast. At that time there weren't podcasts. Someone, a show that helped me to pass through these batches. Completely understand. I mean, when I look back, I'm 35 years old. I've been only being an entrepreneur for 10 years. I mean, but when I look back, I didn't have a precise mentor like this person helped me throughout the process. I did have a lot of books and material available. I know that a few years back, there wasn't so much information.
Yeah, when we're talking a few years, let me frame it for, we're talking early to mid 1980s is when I started my first business. So back then, there wasn't anything available. It wasn't there. It wasn't there. And I read a lot of books, and I watched and I studied some other case studies from other businesses, and of course my education. I actually had a degree in public relations advertising, so that was a big help. But starting my first business was a challenge, and I think I learned a lot, and especially hiring employees. I mean, I may be a great PR guy, and no advertising and marketing. But when it comes to managing those employees, I mean, that's another headache.
Yeah.
And on one of my businesses, I had over 100 employees. Dealing with that, it seemed like every day I was sitting on my desk dealing with some sort of employee issue or personal problem, or they're getting a divorce, or they needed a loan, or their kid got arrested. I mean, every day was something. And so I kept that company for about 15 years or so. And then I moved on. I'm of the ilk, Sergio, that I want to own the company. I don't want it to own me, and that's what that company was doing. It was owning me. It was killing me, bro. It was killing me. It was sucking the life out of me. So that many employees to deal with. So I changed my business model, redid something, made a switch, and it worked out.
Wow, I think that's a great message. Sometimes we believe, I mean, as young entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter how many hours I put in, I want to grow. But there's a turning point where you are doing this all the time. At some point, the company owns you, because you are not dependable on your time. You are only dependable on the company's needs, and then you have to put it on the scale.
And then what I really, anytime somebody asks, and I suggest to young entrepreneurs and business owners, your cash flow is important. How much money you're bringing isn't. How much money you're generating, how much revenue you're bringing in is important. But how much of that revenue are you actually keeping? That is important. And sometimes you can bring in just, large numbers, and if you don't get to keep any, what are you working for? I
Yeah.
tell people that start a business, if you're going to start a business, be prepared to you're going to never work so long, so hard for so little in the beginning. And then after you get it, and most startup businesses, 3 to 5 years are key points. I mean, if you can make it 3, congratulations. If you make it 5, then you might be able to make it. But the failure rate of new upstarts is huge. So there's a lot of businesses always starting, but there's also a lot of businesses failing. And a lot of people fail not because they don't know their skill or the profession they're in, but they just don't know how to scale up, and they don't know how to manage people, and they don't know how to manage their time correctly. So those are important factors that anybody should going into business. Manage your time, learn how to scale up, and if you're going to do something, make sure that as you do it, you're actually making a little bit of money off of it and not just giving it away.
Yeah, that's a great advice. I mean, it doesn't matter what your revenue is, but it's important. It's how much of that revenue you keep for the business and in order to keep growing and scaling. Sometimes I'm talking with other businessmen, they're telling me that they are in 7, 8 figures, and then I ask their margin and their percentage, and they say, oh no, it's too small, or I'm not. Even they are taking it for themselves, not for the company. Even if it's a small margin, then in 5 years the company is bankrupt, even though they're selling huge amounts of money. And that's really interesting. The other thing, it's the human part, the human resources. What I'm a specialist, I'm an industrial engineer with an HR master's. I believe that the people, the persons that work in the company are the key part of any company. It doesn't matter if it's a software company, if it's a manufacturing, if it's a communication, people are the key. The way in the way that you mastered how to communicate a right idea, inspire, and then build the right processes to have the right KPIs and everything to the people, that's also how you're going to scale. Because if you don't have the right people, we were talking about it earlier, like, I don't know how to recruit. How can I get the right talent if I don't know what I need? And then you have to start that process. And then how do I maintain them? How do I inspire them? How do I grow them? And then scale it by acquiring more business and lowering my costs. Because sometimes acquiring more business, it's not equal to having more revenue.
Cedro, you mentioned it, and you're being very kind. I don't think I've mastered anything. I learned the hard way, and I'm still learning. After all these years, I'm still learning about business and managing people. As we go through a generational shift, I mean, dealing with baby boomers is different than dealing with Gen X's, is different than dealing with generation XYZ or whatever generation. They all think differently, they act differently, and many times I just don't get it. I just throw my hands up in frustration and go, deal with this person, because I am not going to. So it's important to be able to manage your people, and I think you hit it. Coming up with systems and processes that can be duplicated and that are scalable are going to be key. No matter what your business is, you need to be able to figure out how to scale up and how to come up with processes that once a person is trained, they know how to do it, and it's not a constant reinventing the wheel every time you turn around or you get a new client.
Yeah, definitely. Now, let me dive into your journey as, of course, business leader, strategist, and communicator. But how did you became involved with TAMACC? And what's been your mission within the organization? You told me that you have been there for years. You also have your business. So how do you manage both, or did you finish one and then start the other?
Well, actually, when I first started my first business was the ad agency, Georgia Communications. I was getting calls from the Austin Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We heard about you. You're Latino. You want to join the organization? I'm really not interested. I really don't have time for that. Thank you very much. And then one day I went to a meeting. They convinced me into go into a meeting, and I look around and I see the caliber of people there and what they're trying to accomplish, of trying to lift each other and trying to help each other in the Latino community. I go, okay, this is something that I'd be interested in. So I came in at that young age and time in my career. So I talked to the executive director, says, okay, in lieu of my dues, I'll write newsletters, I'll do photography, and I'll put together a newsletter for you. And so they go, okay. And so I kind of traded my way in as to getting involved. And that was at the local level. The TAMACC was at the statewide level. I went to my first TAMACC convention. It was in El Paso, Texas. And there was literally, a couple thousand people there. And I just saw all that Latino spirit and entrepreneurs and people that are like super successful. I'm going like, how the hell did they do that? So I said, this is a place to be where I can learn from others, I can meet other people, and we're kind of unified in the sense that somos Latinos, pero al mismo tiempo we want to help each other. And I think it's that attitude that I embraced. And since then, I've been involved in Hispanic chambers at the local, state, and national level ever since I was started my first business. Ever since I was 27, 28 years old, I've been heavily involved in Hispanic chambers and advocating for the Latino business.
And it's an amazing pursuit. I mean, as you were 27, one of the things that you mentioned that sometimes Latinos like to grow their business on their own because they don't have access. They're like really jealous about their things, and they believe that if they share it, someone's going to take from them. To build these communities is really hard. I'm been trying to make my way doing business with Latino owners in the US for the last 5-7 years, and it's been hard because they always ask you, hey, where are you from? What you do? How can I trust? Give me some information about your business, your clients, anything. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that
It's a different way. It's a different way of doing things. If you look at it, Sergio, here in the United States, there's a certain American Western style. Sometimes, rápido. You're just going boom, boom, boom. You go into Mexico and do business in this game. Well, let's go have a nice long lunch, have a few tequilas. You eat. There's not a lunch hour. It's a lunch hour.
Yeah.
And who are you? Where you're from? Who's your family? All the politeness and niceties. So it's almost doing you have to do a shift, in dealing with different people. And I often ask, where you from? One, out of curiosity, but are they? Especially if they're Hispanos, are they Mexicanos? Are they Cubanos? Or Potrequeños? Whatever, because that gives me a sense of who they are and how to deal with it, because you deal differently with different people. There's a lot of things we have in common, but at the same time, as a culture, Hispanic, we have 22, 23 different countries of origin. And a lot of people don't want to wear their flag right there on their forehead and go, I'm Dominican, or I'm Puerto Rican, or Viva Nicaragua. And I go, that's great. But here in the United States, we're viewed by the government, we're viewed by other people. We're all the same. They can't tell the difference between a Cubano and a Mexicano. They just know, hey, they speak Spanish. I can't understand what they're saying. They got darker skin. They put us all in one group, and we're not. We're very diverse. So part of the things I enjoy about working with Latino-based organizations, especially Hispanic chambers in different parts of the country, is you get a mix of all this. You get an understanding of who people are and how to deal with the culture and the specific culture. And I tell people, get a New York Puerto Rican, a California Mexican, a Cubano from Florida, and a Texan, put them all in the same room. They may not even understand each other. It's going to be a crazy mix. Because we're not a homogeneous, we're very diverse within the Latino, Hispano culture, and these are things that need to be recognized. So when you're communicating and dealing with other people, know those nuances and be able to code switch effectively with your own community as you do with the general market.
Yeah, definitely. We do business with Colombians, Venezuelans, Mexicans, all based in the U.S. and Latinos in the U.S. And even though we are all Latinos, you're mentioning, we're different because the business, how we talk to each other, how we exchange information, how do we write emails, everything's different.
How do we talk to each other?
Yeah. The words, the things that we like. Yeah.
And then as often we'll revert to slang, start using slang terms, in your conversation. One day I'm Mr. Gonzales, and the next day I'm away. I'm away. So, it's like whatever works, as long as we have that communication and understanding each other in a respectful manner always.
Yeah, of course. This work that you're doing with TAMACC, what has been the main challenges in positioning Latino entrepreneurs as a key economic force? We already talked about the difference that we have inside the Latino community and how we operate the silos to make a community among each other. It's one of the difficulties, but which others have you seen there that...
It's difficult getting folks together to work together, especially since the Latino community is so diverse. And as Latinos, sometimes, we're just not trusting of each other. And we have to overcome that obstacle of saying, I'm going to trust you, and let's work together on this, because together we can go so much further. Together we can do so much more. As in my early years, it was a challenge of access to capital, sometimes being discriminated against, not be given an opportunity because because of who you are, the fact that you're Latino. It was very frustrating because a lot of these white-owned companies, they'd get the contracts, but they hire Latinos to do the work for them anyway, try to pay them a cheap rate. And Latinos had the skill sets, but when they went out and started their own company, people didn't trust them. So it was a matter of building trust, building community, hating each other on what was going on. And those were the early years. But now, Sergio, with this current administration and this whole anti-immigration, and I call it anti-Latino because the Latino community is being demonized every day on television, on the news. People are saying murderers, rapists, this and that. It's ridiculous. And this whole thing about mass deportation and self-deportation, they're realizing it now. They're starting to feel it. It's just a huge mistake because it's going to adversely affect our economy. You're not going to have an essential workforce. There isn't going to be anybody in the fields picking the crops and corn. There's not going to be anybody working in the hospitality industry. There's going to be a huge vacuum, a void of workers. And so the last census showed it. The white community, non-Hispanic white community, birth rates have just they've plummeted. I mean, they're getting older. They're not having kids. Whereas Latino community, we're younger, we're still childbearing, but even amongst ourselves, our birth rate has dropped. So when we have a growing country and a growing economy, but don't have the workers to support it. And if we don't have workers out there, I mean, the Social Security system, a lot of these places that those workers' monies go into aren't going to be able to support themselves anymore. They're just going to crumble or implode them. So this whole thing of mass deportation, getting rid of these people, and the roundups that are going on is just ridiculous. We're after only the criminals. Nobody. If you're after the criminals, how come you're raiding schools? How come you're raiding workplaces where people are actually working, contributing to community and paying taxes? It's just a numbers game with them right now. The numbers are going to come back and bite them. And as I look at it, you've been to Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, once.
Okay. There's one thing that I learned in Vegas: the casinos never lose. But they're constantly winning. And when we have a president who's actually bankrupted several casinos, I scratch my head. How can you bankrupt a casino? I mean, it's like printing money. But as I see some of the policies and things that he's doing now, I go, now I get it. Now I can see how he can bankrupt a casino. And that's what's happening right now. And my concern is the country's being bankrupted. Also, a key part of this country is the Latino community. Like I said earlier, if we were to be our own country, we would have the 5th largest GDP in the world. We're the workers. We're the essential people out there getting the job done. And if you try to demonize us, terrorize us, and ship us out, well, there's going to be nobody left. White people aren't going to go out there and do the jobs we do. They're not going to get on a roof in 100-degree temperature in Texas. They're not going to go out into California and pick those vegetables. They're not going to go to the slaughterhouses and work those long hours and do this stuff. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest work, and it's work that needs to be done to keep this country going. And so, to my point, in my world, the shift has changed. Now we're not so much trying to help the Latino community grow. I mean, we're still doing that. Grow, financially, politically, economically, whatever. Now we're having to defend our own community for doing nothing wrong, just for being brown, just for having a Hispanic surname. It's kind of, if your name is Gonzales, Gomez, Gutierrez, Ibarra, whatever, it's kind of like, let's come under suspicion. And if you live in a big house, it's probably a drug dealer or something. It's kind of like, come on, man, give me a break. So we have to overcome those stereotypes, and it's very, very difficult, especially when the news media and coming out of the White House, it's just spewing from their lips every day, being negative about our community. So we need to stick together and be positive and make sure that our community is recognized for the proud culture that it is. And so that's one of the things I consider not only my job, but every Latino's job. I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I had a good education. I had loving parents. I grew up right. They raised me right, and I appreciate that. The advantage of having a good education and being involved. I mean, I have been fortunate through my dealings with chambers, both not only at the local level, but state and national levels. I've met 6 U.S. presidents. I've met 3 presidents from Mexico and presidents from all over the country. I've been in places where I never dreamed I would be. And then that's where I realized I need to be a voice. I need to be a voice for those who are not in the room. I need to be a voice for those who are afraid to speak up. I need to be a voice for those who don't have a voice. Because if I don't, then who will? And one of the things I recognize about the Anglo community, white community, see one Mexicano, one Latino, Hispano, and they want to judge the entire community, on their behalf. Give you an example. I was on the national board of the American Heart Association, the national board. There's 50 people on the board. Half of them were doctors and cardiologists. The other half were lay people. I was the only Latino on a board of 50 professionals. And one day a person asked me, he says, JR, so what do Hispanics think about this? And I go, oh, on behalf of 57 million people, we think this. How do you answer that? But in their mind, they're just grouping us all together as one. So it's important that they understand not only our value, but we are not one group of people. We're very diverse within our own communities. Hell, I even forgot what the question was. Excuse me for going on my soapbox.
No.
But these are things that are important. These are things that I wake up every morning to do. It's how can we do this better, and what can we do to change the narrative? Because right now, the narrative is not pretty, and I anticipate it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the things, or one of the main reasons why I started this podcast, this Mente Hispana show, is because of that. Because news always talk about what they want, bad news, or they start saying lies. And I wanted to people have a way to hearing the real stories of real Latinos in the US making changes, like I pay my taxes, I'm a regular citizen, I have a business, so I help X number of families with jobs. So I'm a provider of the community. I'm not everything that you are saying. Maybe there are bad actors, but there's a small percentage compared to the rest of us.
Oh, yeah.
And put us in the same box just because we have the same last name.
And the whole nonsense that, we have open borders. No, but the borders were never open.
No.
They were just following the law the way it was written. If you want change the laws. But right now, this president wants to change the Constitution and redo the census, and do it in such a way we're not counting undocumented or illegal people. And I go, no, that's not the way. That's not what the Constitution says. It gets very frustrating when we talk about a country with a rule of law, but yet, if the law doesn't fit your narrative or your satisfaction, well, just ignore that law. Or let's just change it, or let's try to write an executive order. And I read one the other day that really got the Trump administration is now going to start reviewing the Smithsonian Museum up in Washington to see if history, especially American history, fits what Donald Trump thinks. And if there's exhibits that don't fit, they're going to remove them. What kind of nonsense is that? Whitewashing history to fit a certain narrative of one person? You're supposed to learn from history. You're supposed to learn from your mistakes and not sit there and erase them as they've never happened. Very, very frustrating. But you know what, Sergio? Even though it's difficult, damn proud to be Latino and to speak up, because I go, here I am on the front line. I welcome other people to join me. And part of what I do is I train. I do leadership training, leadership development, and I train other people, especially Latinos and Latinas, to advocate, to speak up, to be on the front lines. We need more Dolores Huertas. We need more, Corky Gonzaleses. We need more, Gus Garcias, in our history that were outspoken and spoke truth to power. We don't have enough of us. We don't have enough of those people. So as I'm getting along in my years, my attitude is, let me spend my time. I still advocate, and I'm still up in Washington, D.C. and on Capitol Hill and speaking my mind. But I'm also spending a lot of time training the next generation of leaders, because they're going to have to carry it, and they're going to have to make the change. In my lifetime, which I hope lasts a little bit longer, we may not see the equalization of the changes that we need to see.
Yeah. One last anecdote regarding this. What we do is we help business in the U.S. with HR services. We got consulting, staffing, and recruitment international. So people that want opportunities of jobs in the U.S., we help them to find them. And once I was talking with a client that it's a healthcare chain of hospitals. I was walking the floor of one of these hospitals, and one old white man told me like, "Hey, I don't want you or your people to take care of me." And I look at him and I told him, all right, then nobody will take care of you. You will die alone. Because if you don't want us to help you, we want to help you. But if you don't want us to help you, you can die alone. I told him other things, but he just shocked me and says, like in a grumpy way, because he was an old man, okay, yeah, I need to be taken care of. I think the necessity, it's going to help us. But as you said, it's not going to get better until it gets a little bit worse, and then it will get better. they are not realizing by good faith, they are realizing by necessity how important is our interaction in their economy, country, in their culture. Definitely will take time, but I see this shifting, this culture shift in a short to mid-term.
It'll happen. It's going to have to happen because there's no other choice, and the only other choice is just this country just imploding. I mean, the whole attitudes with foreign policy, the geopolitical environment. I mean, it's all screwed up right now. You can't be an isolationist type country and then try to demand or dictate to other countries what to do and not to do. That makes no sense. So it's going to get worse, and my concern is how many people are going to be adversely affected, how many people are going to be deported, how many people are going to lose their jobs, their lives, how many people are going to be arrested, how many families are going to be ruined, how many businesses are going to close down, and not just Latino businesses, because a lot of these non-Hispanic white businesses are dependent on Latino customers. And a lot of these customers aren't going out anymore. They're not buying or shopping there porque they don't want migra to grab them up when they're buying their groceries or going to the movie theater. So everybody's suffering. They're starting to feel it. They're going to be feeling it more and more as this whole immigration and militarization of National Guard troops being deployed to cities for whatever reason. It's going to get worse. Sergio, it's a sad time in our country's history.
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask you is, our audience it's based on Hispanic leaders, mostly business leaders. What skills should a Latino leader develop to grow in order to affront these changes? Imagine you are talking to young business owners that are trying to scaling up their business. Which are your recommendations regarding, hey, you should work on these skills because we need you to have this?
Yeah. One of the skills I always advocate for anybody, Latino, non-Latino, whoever, is communication skills. And communication skills, know how to write, know how to speak up. This weekend I'm doing with our leadership class, Leadership Tejas, we're doing an entire day of media training at Texas State University, where we're training them on doing interviews, getting them in front of TV cameras, recording them, playing it back, teaching them what they did right, what they did wrong. We're preparing them to be warriors out there. And so communication is going to be a key thing. Time management is going to be another factor. Know how to do your time, and also basic management techniques. Learn how to manage. And one thing as business owners and entrepreneurs, we have an idea, we start going off, and sometimes we don't even know how to manage our own time correctly. Well, many times we don't know how to manage our own time correctly. But learning those skills of time management, if you have employees, is going to be crucial. You may be the best person at what you do, but for example, let's say you're somebody's grandmother, whatever, and you want to start a business making tamales. You may make the best tamales in the whole world, but if you don't have systems in place to scale up, if you don't have good employees that follow instructions and can keep that recipe, if you don't have distribution points, if you don't have a method of tracking and showing those margins, but you're not going to succeed. You'll just be that little viejita that makes good tamales that went out of business after 3 or 4 years. So these are important things. There's all kinds of help online. You can go to the Small Business Administration. You can go to SCORE. You can go to a lot of resources if they haven't been dismantled already. There's a lot of resources out there for small businesses. And I'd also recommend for Latino-owned businesses, there's usually a Hispanic chamber in your area. So reach out, see what they have. You're always welcome here at our organization, TAMACC. And you can find us at tamacc.org. tcc.org. Write us. And myself, J.R. Gonzales, I'm easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and of course, I would be remiss, Sergio, if I didn't plug my own podcast, the Latino Business Report. In fact, my latest edition, very proud, I was able to interview Grammy Award Tejano mute Bobby Pulido. Bobby is on his farewell tour, and he's, after 30 years of success, he's going to hang up his guitar, and he's going to stop singing, and he's going to run for Congress. He's going to run for political office. So we're excited about that, to see about supporting him in those endeavors. We need more Latinos running for office, more Latinos. And when I say Latinos, I also include Latinas. So don't think I'm just talking about men. We need more. We need more Hispanos running for office at all levels to make sure we have a seat at the table and we have the voice. In Texas, the Latino population is the majority. In fact, since 2014, Texas has been a minority state, but it's still run by a handful of white people, and we need to change that.
We need to change that. Now that you're talking about these specific things and skills, well, I'm amazed by Bobby Pulido. I didn't know about that, so that's great to hear. What does being a good leader, we need more leaders there. We need people that needs communication skills, that needs time management, that wants to speak up and be in the front line. But what does being a good leader mean?
One of the tributes or one of the traits a good leader should have is to be a good listener. Is to be a good listener and do an accurate assessment of what's going on around you. I have my own ideas, and if I go into a situation like a bull in a china shop, and if I didn't read the room right, or if I didn't do a good assessment of what's really going on, I could make a huge mistake, or I could just break all the china and not accomplish anything. So if you're going to lead, you don't always have to be out front. You can lead from behind, you can lead from the middle, and sometimes you can just be that voice that triggers the leadership to do the right thing. But be a good listener and understand fully of what's going on around you. Do your assessment, do your study, and do your research to make sure that what you're about to do is the best move. Sometimes it's a chance. It's a 50-50 chance. Sometimes, you're up against the wall and I'm not. There's a lot of fights I'll do at the Texas legislature advocating or speaking up, for or against a piece of legislation. And I know I'm not going to win, because they already have the votes. They have the numbers, and I know it. But I'm not going to sit there and not fight the fight, because if I don't fight the fight, it's going to be because, you know what? We can do whatever we want, against the Latino community, because they're never going to say anything. Fight them every step of the way. They're going to earn it. They're going to have to pay for it. So I'm looking at, to be a good leader, you need to be willing to take a chance. You need to be willing to risk, because sometimes not only your professional, but your personal lifestyle. But it's important to listen and to make sure that what you do is for the right reasons. And if it's not, then you're not a leader, you're just a pinche bully.
Yeah. So I really liked that definition of leadership, because sometimes we want to go fast, but if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to go in a community. So in order to be in a community, you need to be a good listener. And to be a good listener is to understand what people needs and the needs of the community. In order to lead, you are in the service of others, not of yourself. Because if you are in the service of yourself, go alone. But if you're in the service of others, you have to listen and then put yourself into service to be a good leader.
Exactly. People used to tell me, "Oh, JR, it must be great being your own boss and not have anybody tell you what to do." I start laughing. I go, "Look, when you're a business owner, every one of your customers are your bosses. You have more bosses than you've ever had before. So don't think it's my choice. I mean, I have certain choices to do things. No, you're not your own boss. Your customers are your bosses, because the customer, you want to provide the needs for them to have a successful business. Leadership is a complicated issue. Various types of leadership, authoritarian leadership, fair leadership, servant leadership. There's books and books and books on it. And I've read, one year I said I'm going to read a new book on leadership every month. After 12 months of reading 12 different books, I said, well, I maybe got one or two bits of new information out of some of them. A lot of them are just the same stuff regurgitated over and over and over. But leadership is very personal.
Yeah.
You don't try to be somebody you're not. Be yourself, but utilize the skills that you have. And if you need to improve your skills, work on it and slowly perfect those skills so you can go out and make the change necessary, or make even a bigger change than you are now.
JR, completely agree. Time is ending. I always say that time flows and goes really fast when you're having fun. And I'm loving this conversation that we're having, but unfortunately we have to start closing. Is there any message that you want to give the audience, or any other important message, communication that you want to share with us?
I think there's 2 points I want to make, if you allow me, and thank you. I think the first point is that dream big, follow your dreams, dream big. Don't be afraid of it. But at the same time, don't be afraid of it, but don't be defeated by other people's thoughts and attitudes and what they say. If you believe in something, pursue it. And don't be afraid to take a risk, because if you don't take a risk, you take a big risk, there's big gains. There's always a way. And never, ever forget who you are. Be proud of who you are. Use it to your advantage. Quickly, I remember a story where I was in college and I was working construction. 110-degree temperature, long sleeve shirts, blue jeans, steel-toed boots, hard hats. And I went by, and this was in San Marcos, I went by Sewell Park, by where the river was, and I look over there, And I see these co-eds laying in the sun. I see these guys drinking beer, playing hacky sack. And I was going, it almost made me mad. I go, look, I'm having to work my ass off to do this just to try to scratch up money for tuition. And here these guys are sitting out there just enjoying life. I go, why can't I be more like that? Or how come I didn't have those advantages? But then the foco went off in my head. It went off. I looked at it and I said, wait a minute. You know what? These co-eds or these other students, they're laying out in the sun trying to get brown as they're studying their Spanish books. I'm already ahead. I don't need to study my Spanish book. I'm already brown. I don't need to waste time laying out in the sun. So it's from that point on, is a mental shift. Said, look at your life. Look at it in a positive way. Don't look at some of the things that you're facing as a crutch. Use it to your advantage. Use it to your advantage. I had some people that lived in my dormitory that were always picking on me. They were rednecks, just redneck cowboys. They thought theirs didn't stink. I mean, and they called me every name in the book. One day I just was fed up, and I go, you blankety blank redneck blankety blanks. I go, you ought to be thanking me and my people. He goes, thanking you for what? What have you done for us? I go, because one of them, they're both on the rodeo circuit. One was a bareback rider, and the other was a rodeo clown. And I said, dude, if it wasn't for our people, my people, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. I go, you think horses came over on the Mayflower? No, it was the Spanish conquistadores that brought the horses into Mexico, that the herds of Mustangs developed, and it was the Mexican vaquero that taught, the Anglo settlers how to be cowboys. I mean, it was us. It was us that taught you. If it wasn't for Mexican influence, you wouldn't even be a cowboy. So be proud of who you are. Be proud of where you came from. Dream big and pursue those dreams and use everything possible to follow it, because you know what? Not everybody wins, but somebody's going to win, and it might as well be you. And my last point I want to make, and thank you very much for allowing me this time. If you want to hear more of what I have to say, Latino Business Report. You can go to LatinoBusinessReport.com. Come listen to our entire library of episodes. We have 113 of them right now. I encourage you to do that. So thank you for allowing that commercial. And Sergio, thank you for having me on your show. It's been an honor. And best of luck to you, hermano. Feel free to pick up the phone and call me anytime.
Definitely will. And I would love to go and visit you someday. The TAMACC, involved with the chamber and helping in whatever I can. It's been really inspiring talking to you. I appreciate your time. Of course, all your information is going to be in the social media. So if you are listening to us and you want to enter some of these, it's on the description. Don't forget to listen to the Latino Business at latinobusinessreport.com or on your favorite platform where JR shares all the conversations with real impact. Remember to follow JR Gonzales on LinkedIn for content about business, leadership, strategy, and community. Also, subscribe to Mente Hispana if you like this podcast and conversation and want to learn more about others. Share this episode with Latino entrepreneurs who are looking to grow and get inspired. And well, thank you, JR. So thank you for joining us another episode of Mente Hispana. Today we'll learn that true leadership is about amplifying, representing, and serving. Keep building, keep dreaming.